Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the one lady is out today. Hello, everybody. A couple of advertisements. From the management. Every team should by now have sent an email to your product reviewer. If you have not, you've been bad. So send one. Okay, this is part of getting good at dealing with business relationships, so they'll help you in the future. Send them links, whatever, but basically just say thank you for the time they spent. Okay. Second advertisement. In about a little while, the Brandeis 3-day startup event happens, and you can find it at this URL, brandeis3daystartup.org. And basically, it's an event that goes over 3 days, and teams work around the clock, essentially, to create a business. And you will have a combination of business students and co-sci students there. And the concept is that you propose or you pitch or you write an application, I think it is, for a product that you want to build, submit it to them, and they will probably say yes. And then the first day on Friday, everybody's in a room, and the people that have pitched ideas pitch them, and then you sort of recruit 2 or 3 other people. You guys are all going to be the technical person, so you'll recruit a business person that's in the audience to work on your project, and then you will have those people's full attention for 3 days. And then at the end, and there's mentoring, and there's professionals there helping you. For example, there's usually there's like a law firm that's there to talk to people who want to talk about intellectual property or incorporation. Usually there's a finance person there for people who want to talk about raising money and so on. And then there's mentors, people like me. I haven't said yes yet, but I'll say yes. That will be basically assigned a team to work with over the weekend. But there'll be other mentors totally different. Probably more of them are going to be business people than techies. So that's a really good thing. I recommend each of the products to seriously consider doing this. It's a lot of fun. People who have done it in the past have thought it was really cool. And you get 3 days of intensive work and free labor to help you with your business model potentially or refining your idea in case you want to turn it into a business. Okay? That's the ad. And the third ad is the New England Undergraduate Computer Symposium. Here's the webpage from last year. And it's happening again this year. And Tim Hickey sent out this update that you all got. And it's going to happen the end of March, as you can see. And it's basically, you can demo a product, you can have a poster session, and again, it's a way to interact with your peers, to get to know people, to see other cool things that are going on among other undergraduates and graduates. And it's a lot of fun. I've been to that as well several times. It's really cool. So I recommend all of you also to consider submitting something there. Obviously, in both cases, it does not have to be a product you're working on in this class. It could be any product you're interested in. I have been a thorn in the 3-day startup people's side over the last 6 months to push them to encourage more co-sci students to participate. Because when I've done it in the past, as a mentor, what I found is there were multiple projects which were pretty interesting, except all 4 people on the project, or all 7 people on the project were business people, and none of them had an idea about how hard something would be built. So they would all go do marketing plans and finance plans and business models and all this stuff, and then they say, well, we'll go find a program to build this for us, which to me is kind of like backwards. So I really pushed them to get more computer science people involved. So now that I pushed them, I hope that some of you, or all of you, will decide to participate. Okay? All right.
So I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So for the 3-day startup thing, do we have to go there with a project idea, or is
So you can go there and join another one, but I think it'd be cool if you have a pretty cool project idea. You can sort of submit it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good either way. Look at the website and check it out. I promise you, when I've been there, you know, a bunch of students, they're all like, you know, half awake, half asleep. They've been working the whole weekend. They're having a great time. There's food. There's junk food. It's really fun. So I give it a good thumbs up. This thing here, the Newts, is just a one-time event. It's not a whole process. It's just a way to sort of get exposure of your ideas, maybe get somebody who's interested in working on it, joining us, or something like that. Both fun, and both in March. Okay? All right. Let us jump into the topic at hand. which is understanding controllers. But I'm going to bring back some stuff from the previous lecture, which I ran out of time on. Bless you. Real quickly, I want to talk again a little bit about, very briefly, about mocks. They're a general category of the concept, or the general category is called doubles, test doubles. These are classes which are meant to stand in for another class. And generally you do it because your system is so complicated that if I want to test the controller, the bank account object, which is pretty complicated, which relies on the employee subsystem object, which is pretty complicated too, you end up with too many things to test at once. So what you do is you essentially put the bank account class up on the lift, and instead of having the whole car there, you have a bunch of fake bits of cars to make the bank account think it's actually in a car, but it's not. I'm mixing my metaphors. The engine think it's in a car, but it's not. Okay? And so the things you plug in, the mocks, their job is to pretend only as much as necessary that they're really what they look like they are, to allow the bank account or the engine to actually run along the way. So that's the general idea of a test double. There's variants of test doubles. Some of them simply are there to pretend and do nothing more. Some of them actually record that the calls that they should be getting are coming in. So in other words, if you have a bank account class and it is relying on a customer class, and the bank account class, the only thing it does with the customer class is ask for its name and its credit history, then the test double, which is standing in for the account class, has those two methods: get name and get credit history. If you're the next level is simply, one of them is just returning something. The other one is to ensure that those methods get called in the order that they're supposed to be called. And the final one is to actually record the calls so that after the whole thing is over, you can actually see what calls happen. So it's a whole, kind of a sub area of study that's pretty interesting, but you don't need to get that deep into it to get advantage out of it. And so the thing you want to be on the lookout for when you write a unit test, and we're definitely going to be watching to see that you guys are writing unit tests, that if you find that the unit test seems to be complicated because it involves multiple objects and multiple classes, that's a sign that maybe you want to have a mock. Maybe you want to decide what class you're testing, and the ones around it are just fake, the mocks. Okay? So that's the pattern you want to keep an eye out for. When you're trying to write a unit test and it looks like you have to have everything there to get it to test, which sort of defeats the purpose. That's when you want to look for a mock. I won't go into those files again as I did last time. Now, several people missing here, right? Let's talk about what testing looks like in Rails. So I'm going to do a little coding here. I'm going to move this over here, get to my here. That's not good. Stay small. Okay, can everybody see that basically? If you can't, and because of your eyesight or because you're too far, please switch chairs. This is important, okay? So I'm going to remove the other shoes, which I just did just now to make sure that I was doing it correctly. And I'm going to say Rails new shoes. I'm making a new app called Shoes. I'm going to make a change to the gem file. While I'm waiting for this, let me remind you what the gem file is. Actually, who can say what the gem file is in a Rails app? Yes?
Well, it's the file that bundler reads to
Yep.
see what gems are required for that.
Exactly. And bundler, what you see this output here is the output from bundler. It got run automatically, and it just verified that I had all the right versions of all the gems. So my instructions here that I wrote down for myself says to go edit the bundle file. The gem file. No, you're right, the gem file. Just go away. Save. Okay. where is my sub router? Okay. All right. And I have it on my clipboard, so I'm just going to, hey, that's not what I want. Okay, go away. Sorry. This is so the recording comes out. Hey, this is really strange. Okay, go away. Close it. Maybe. Oh yeah, probably. File open. My dev shoes. Okay. So here's the gem file, and I can stick it in anywhere. It doesn't matter. There it is. The group test, by the way. This says to Bundler, if you know what environment Bundler is running, you can pay attention to the fact that Minitest spec Rails should only be in play when I'm doing a test, when I'm running a test, okay? So now, oops, sorry. I'm going to go and just going to copy this to save typing. Go to my terminal. Okay, here I am. I'm in the shoes directory because I did the CD shoes, right? And I'm going to do a scaffold generation. Let's take a look at what that did. That's really the point of this. Sorry?
A scaffold generation?
Yeah, so basically I said Rails generate scaffold shoes. So basically I'm creating a shoes resource, and I'm telling it right off the bat that here are the parameters. That I have a name property, a price property, a color property, and a size property, and it's going to build the whole application. It's going to build my controllers, my views. Scaffolding is a term that's used in software engineering often to mean what it means in construction. You know, you're building things to avoid, to help you get higher quicker. So that's what it is. So it basically populated this Rails app with a whole bunch of things that relate to the shoes application. So let's take a look at each of them.
So you create a single shoe, like, because when I ran it, it says that plural version of model detected.
Say louder.
So when I ran the same thing you had, it says plural version of model detected using singular.
Oh, right, yeah.
So you have to use the singular version because
It's a convention, and I screwed up there. This should be shoe. The convention is that this is a classic point of confusion in Rails. I put a link to show you all the pluralization stuff in the Piazza for your curiosity. But basically, the model is capitalized and singular. The database name is plural and lowercase. Okay, that's just the way it is. There's no good reason. People argue about it. They don't like it. Some people love it. Some people like it. Don't worry about it. Don't let it bother you. Yeah.
I read on the, I think it was chapter 18 or something.
Yeah.
They give a rough reasoning behind the tolerance.
Yeah.
And it's easier if you talk to the customer who doesn't know much about computer science and will say, select all products with a certain blah 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 from products.
Yeah.
Instead of from products.
Yeah. But that's if you're in SQL. But on the other hand, in the code, you're sitting and saying shoe.all, which is like, you know, it's not, you know, it's just the DHH, David Hagner, whatever guy's name is, who invented Rails. It's his thing. And whatever. Is that a hand or a
Yeah.
plural? Okay. Yeah.
And about a question that relates kind of.
Please.
When you put the virus thing up on Piazza, the virus goes, I don't know if you've heard of the word theory.
Oh, a virus. Yeah. Yeah.
I looked it up, and
Yeah.
that's not the plural of virus.
Oh,
it's
well.
a common misconception, and so is the thing wrong about plurals?
Of course. I just look at look at the link. It's just code.
Yeah, but like, why would they put the wrong plural?
They maybe the guys from Iceland.
You know, they make mistakes.
So Rails people can't make mistakes.
They provide you with a file so you can change it.
Rails
You
has
provide
got
you
the
with a
ability to change it.
Okay.
You can just go.
Okay.
I mean, it's a
Fun and
system
games.
that goes irregular.
All right, so let's see quickly what that did in terms of testing. And I'm going to go do a similar example soon that was going to look at controllers. I won't bother with that. So the test directory is full of stuff already. Okay? And I'm going to go through the easy ones and work towards the more arcane ones. So let's look at models first. So there's it's created a model test for shoes. It has nothing in it. All it has is a single test that says test. Oh, by the way, this format is mini test by itself without spec. It's valid. If you like this better, I like to describe syntax better. But basically, they say this is just a reminder. This is where the tests go for the model file called shoe.rb. Okay, so it's built that just to remind you where they go. It goes in a subdirectory called models. Okay, it's also created, this you guys have already used, fixtures that, again, typical for Rails. They give you a couple of examples that you can edit and kill for you know, delete and replace, but it reminds you what to do. Okay, here's how you do two shoes. And obviously, it's paid attention to the fact that the fields that I put in my scaffold generator is this, boom, boom, boom. Name, price, color, size. Okay? Going further, haven't talked about helpers much. Helpers there's a lot of built-in helpers. Helpers are methods that are offered by Rails to be used in views. And that's an important thing because that's often it's not written down anywhere. Although it's written down somewhere, but it's hard to find. But the principle is, in Rails, the helper methods are, think of them as view helper methods. They're ways to avoid typing as much HTML. Okay? And again, there they can be tested as is illustrated here. It's, again, not much here. But let me show you a very interesting one. Controllers. Now, this is a new thing. We're going to talk about controllers in a minute. But basically, this is a whole slew of tests that actually is going to exercise the controller as if it's getting called by a browser. Test that it should get an index. The syntax is get :index, which is the URL, so it's shoe/index.html, and then make sure that you get a success response, which is a 400, and then make sure that that you get a page back for shoes. This is what I talked before about as integration testing or even end-to-end testing. Now you notice that they have a separate thing here called integration testing, which there's nothing in it, and a mailer testing, which there's nothing in it. These directory names are not special, okay? You might decide that you don't want to, I hardly ever have anything in these other directories. That's fine. You may put a different directory there. That's fine too. This is just code. It's just there so that in the tradition of convention over configuration, I can be sitting here in my prompt and say rake test, or just rake by itself, and it runs a total of 0 tests. Why is that? I'm not sure. Maybe because they are all, let's see. Okay, let's see. We have to let's do a DB migrate. Always a good idea to remember to read the error messages. The error messages are there, and very often the answer to your puzzle is in the error message, okay? So I'm going to do rake DB migrate. I saw a question in the Piazza about the pages that asked, I'm not clear yet what rake does, okay? Think of rake as the toolbox of handy-dandy developer utilities provided by Rails. Okay, that's what it is. So you have to look at the list of utilities to see what's there. There's a lot there. It's just the grab bag of utilities. Yes.
But they're mainly for just database tasks, right?
No, there are all kinds of things. Like I'll show you a bunch. So this one, for example, is running tests. But there's others that examine the routing structure. There's others that will exercise some email component or whatever. Yeah.
But you can also define your own, right?
You can define your own, absolutely. Yeah. Rake is a whole world of its own. I won't go into it right now. It's not that hard to figure out. So I mean, you know, actually, I want a little meta comment here. The difference between what I'm doing here and what I want to do in like a workshop or in Brandite is that I don't really think this course should be a course about every little thing about Rails. Okay, it should be a course about building systems, software engineering methodology. It should be a course about building products. I'm counting on you guys to be your own, take the initiative to go look into these things. Okay, I can't pre-digest and give you everything. I can give you the pointers, but really, your job here is to go look at Rake and figure it out. I'll give you the tips. Like for example, in Rake, you can do rake-t, And it's going to give you the list of all the different commands that exist for rake. A lot of them, okay? You don't use 90% of these, okay? So the ones that are most important are like rakedb migrate and a few related to databases. That doesn't mean that I'm not happy to teach you guys this stuff, but I'm going to do it in workshops separate from the class, not necessarily in class. I mean, obviously I do some in class, but I don't want to go to a very ultimate level. I'm counting on you guys to do it yourselves. Okay, continuing. Okay, so let me just, by the way, say rake again and see whether it runs the test now. Okay, better. So previously it failed because it said the database was not initialized. Now it says it runs 7 tests, 13 assertions, 0 failures. Why? Because all the tests that are given to you for free by Rails are no-ops. What does no-op stand for? Anybody?
No versions?
This is the first time you heard that word, no-op? Ah, okay, no-op, yeah. It's an old computer term. Computers, CPUs have instruction sets where you code in assembly language or machine language, and every CPU has a command or an instruction called the no-op, which does nothing. So it's shorthand for it does nothing. Okay, a little bit of geek talk for you. If you're wondering about this error message, like you should, the way you're going to solve this is you're going to Google for this error message, and you're going to find a dozen blog posts that explain how to make it go away. Okay? So the point here is that what we learned in doing unit tests in the point and shape and scene practice and the discussion we had last class applies exactly the same way in Rails. And in fact, Rails uses what it knows about the application you're building to give you guidance about where to stick the test. But it's the same stuff. And like I said the other day, don't feel like I have to test a million things and thereby not do anything. Pick one thing and test it. Pick one of your models and test it. Pick one of your other classes and test it. And then once you start getting the feel of it, you're going to do more. Okay? But don't be overwhelmed. You don't have to do every single one. Okay. Now, switching now to the official topic of today's class, which is controllers. I'm going to go back to first principles a little bit. So first of all, I've started putting into the class notes reference colon to links that are very relevant to what I'm talking about here. So if you want to know more, just click on that and go deeper. Okay? In general, the Rails guides, of which there's about a dozen, are, if you printed them out, maybe 20 or 30 page chapters explaining some aspects of Rails in a very, very easy to understand way, but fairly in depth. So in general, that's not a bad first place to look if you're wondering about rake or about migrations or about testing. Not a bad place to look, okay?
Which is
The guides,
just
the Rails guides. Huh?
tutorial, just their API.
No, Rails guides is the thing you read.
Okay,
Do Google Rails guides database, and you'll see a guide. They're called the Rails guides.
Yeah.
Okay. They're called, basically, if you look at the URL, okay, it's blocked. Okay. Phew. All right. Let's not worry about that. Okay. So the controller. I talked at length the other day about how job of the controller is. In fact, who can describe? And I'll hide this. What happens when a URL is sent to the server in Rails? What are the steps? I can't even see it. That's a black spot right there. Who else? John. Can you? No? How are you? Can you? Really? Who can? Is that a hand?
Sure.
Half a hand?
It's half and half.
All right, people can help you. You do half and then you do the other half. Go ahead.
All right. Well, in terms of the Rails server, so assuming it's already found the website.
Right. Listen to him, okay? This is important because all you guys that didn't know, learn from Nick.
And then,
I'll correct him when he says it wrong. Okay, go ahead.
And then so once you're beyond the domain name, then
Yep.
it will start parsing out, and the farthest to the right
Yep.
name is
Yep.
the controller it's searching for, and then essentially everything to the left of that, other than the domain, is the directory structure.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It just kind of
Yeah.
shuffles it
And
off
who
the
does
controller.
the parsing of the directory structure? What part of the Rails stack?
It's the-
The router.
Yeah, exactly. The routing stuff, I was thinking the router. Yes?
Does Rails automatically determine whether the last part of the URL is the name of the controller or the name of the method inside of it?
It's the name of a method inside the controller. It's automatic by default, but every little thing can be customized.
So that, I mean, like, if I want, can I add something like an index method? Which will
Yeah. Because I mean, that would be, in other words, the last thing / index is the name of an action on the controller named the thing before the last thing. I mean, I'm going to go much deeper into this, but I'll just quickly say
I have a controller
/users
called search, and I want to
/1 / index. It knows that this is the controller, the action, and it knows that, in fact, in this case, this is the controller, and this is going to be a parameter to the controller. I'm going to explain how that works in a second. It's going to be the user's controller. It's going to be the index action. It's not the right thing, of course, because it's not.
It's the other way around, right?
No, it's like this. This is index.html, or no, it would be users.html actually. So it's going to be this. Well, we'll see in a second. This is probably going to be. I think it's going to be just the show. This is going to turn out to be the show action, and I'll explain exactly. I'm just getting ahead of myself. The show action of the user's controller, and the show action is going to get the parameter 1, and the router is part of the system that understands how to parse this into this invocation, and your specification in routes.rb is your hint to the router exactly how you want it parsed. You had another question about search or something? Jordan?
So if I have a controller called search,
Controller called search, yes?
and I want like webrator.com/search.
Right.
So I have to add a show method to the search controller in order to be able to
Give me your URL again.
webrator.com
Okay. /search.
search.
Okay, what you have here is going to be some defaulting is kicking into place. You're going to have to probably have a search controller. You're going to have one of two things: a search controller with a default like index or get method on it, and then you'll have to do some little bit of special casing inside your route.
Okay. So for that, you have at least 2 slashes after the root, let's say.
You don't have to have them, but eventually, because it's defaulting, they can kick into place. I mean, you can definitely make this a URL that's valid.
Without I would need search /
Get.
method.
/all, /value. Yes.
I think this one, you might not need a search controller. You can configure that as in routes.rb.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, so the thing to remember is that I'm talking a lot about defaults, and it's not a bad idea to follow the defaults because they got to be defaults because that's the most easy way. This is sort of the cleanest path. But if you have a real good reason, you can always override them and do whatever you want. Okay, good, excellent. So now I'm going to reveal my secret that I hid. So what does it do? The router parses the URL. It determines what the controller is. If it can't figure out, if there's no controller by the right name, you got an error. It determines the action inside the controller. If it can't find a method by that name, that's an error. It calls the action and constructs a parameter set, which I'm going to go into in detail. And then the action just executes. It does what it does. Okay? When the action is done, by default, it's going to look for a view file by the name of So taking the easy case, users /3, it's going to be looking for a controller called user controller, users controller. It's going to look for an action called show. The action called show is going to get a parameter 3 and a few other things. And when the show completes, so when it hits the end, the router, actually Rails, let's say Rails, looks for /views /controller name, so users /show, because of the action name, action.html.erb. Okay? So basically, the naming works throughout. It works all the way down. Yes.
If I have a, let's say, a string as a parameter,
Yes.
how can I make sure that Rails knows that this is a parameter, not a message?
You will see. It's closing the routing. In the routes.rb. Okay? All right. HTTP. I have to talk about HTTP. Now you all know, you think you know what HTTP is, so who can say what HTTP is? Mr. IT help desk. What's the protocol?
Hypertext.
Say what?
Hypertext.
Okay, that's true. It is. That's what it stands for, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. What's a protocol? Come on, I want to see some motion here. Yes.
It's a sort of standard language, agreed upon language.
Exactly. That's all it is. Protocol, when you meet in the U.S., when you meet somebody new, you shake their hands, they shake their hand, you look in their eyes. That's protocol. That's a protocol. Okay? Protocol is when I want something, I say X, and you say Y. Protocol is when I address an envelope in the U.S. mail, I better put name, followed by street address, followed by city, followed by zip code. That's a protocol. If I don't do that, the mail doesn't get delivered. That's protocol. Yes.
I just want to say that it gives the format of each message, like in technical terms.
Yeah. The format and the response.
And response, yes.
The
So it
valid-
says, like in the first line, put this and then
Yeah.
colon and then.
Exactly. That's what it is. So, so let's take a look. Let's take the covers off. First of all, mental model. When you're thinking about, so I talked about theoretically or conceptually what a protocol is. I want to tell you that if you want to talk about HTTP, to not worry so much about the conceptual thing and think of it as a subroutine call. Think of it as the client, the laptop, making a subroutine call to the server, and the server answering with a result. That's what it is. And your job in building a Rails server is to build a piece of code which can produce the right results for the right calls. So for me, that's a much easier way to think of it. One call, one response. It's just like a subroutine call. Okay? So let's play. Move this aside so we can compare it to what actually happens. Ah, come on. Oh, this is what I want. Okay. So I'm going to run this program called Telnet. Telnet is a standard Unix program which allows you to do network operations directly through the command line. Okay? So I'm going to tell Telnet, I would like you to send this command to a server called example.com, and I want to send it on port 80. So when I do a call to this subroutine, I have to give it a few things. One of them I have to give is where is it, what computer, and then the computer has 100 doors on it, and you have to knock on the right door. You have to knock on door 80. That's the port. And once I hit enter, it's going to go, okay, I'm ready to talk to that computer. I found it. I found door 80. What do you want me to say? And I'm going to say get/http/1.1. I'm going to type this host :example.com. Enter. So this is now the call. This is the subroutine call with the parentheses. And the parameters to the subroutine call are path is /, version of the program I want to talk to or version of the protocol I want to use is 1.1, name of the protocol is HTTP, and I'm trying to reach a computer called example.com. Those are the required parameters that I send on this call, and when I hit enter, I'm going to see if the call works. I'm going to hit enter, and the call worked. The server answered, and let's see what the server said. The server said to me, first thing, so here's where I ended, right? This is where I ended. The server said to me, I understand. Okay, that's a 400. A 200, actually, I was wrong. It's a 200. And then there's a whole bunch of other standard parameters that it sends back. The most interesting ones are this one here that says the server's telling me, the caller, I'm the caller, the server is the respondent. It's telling me I'm going to give you a bunch of stuff, and I want you to interpret it as if it is text. In particular, I want to interpret this text formatted in HTML. If I was returning an image, it would say something like image/JPEG. If I was returning a video, it would return, I don't know what. There's a whole list of data type specs. They're called MIME types, if you ever hear that term. And then, after the last of the standard header, all this stuff, comes the actual content. And that, surprise, surprise, is just HTML. All right? And that is how, when I go to my browser and I type example.com, I get that. Because the browser, see, title, example, domain, asked, made the call to the server, server didn't call, get this argument, / this protocol 1.1, and the server returned and said, I'm going to give you text. In fact, that text is HTML, and here it is. The client, i.e. the browser, receives this, and by the magic of the rendering, it displays that. Crystal clear? It's really important that you internalize this. You don't have to think about all the complexities, but to have this idea in your mind that the client, that is the browser, usually, sometimes something else, but let's say the browser, makes a call with certain parameters. The server, that's the thing you're writing, job is to return the answer in a way that makes sense. Okay? So, continue. So I'm going to just quickly, I'm not going to go into any detail here, but deconstructing the call. When I called this routine, I said target host example.com, target port on the host, the door to knock on, a HTTP verb. This is very important. I'm going to come to this later. Every HTTP call has one of a few verbs, which are like a top-level required argument that's always there. Okay? Get is the most common one. If you click on this link, you'll see a list of all the other verbs. The address, which is another parameter, which is the path. In this case, it's a /. Finally, the version of the protocol 1.1. Question: why is it important that the version of the HTTP protocol is written here? Yes, or the answer. Number 2. The caller, which is my computer, is calling a server that's sitting in Sevastopol, Ukraine, and it's running some unknown server software, and I'm giving it this call. Why is it important?
Well, because presumably the protocol changes. So
Right.
if someone's using an older version,
Right.
and you send some more advanced thing, they won't be able to understand.
This is a basic principle of design of network systems, which is, they call this a handshake. It's true with SSL, with HTTPS, with take your pick, whatever it is, there's a handshake. It's almost as if, let's say I speak 3 languages, which I do, and let's say you speak 3 languages, which you do. We meet each other on the street, and we're going to find out how can we talk. I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to say I speak Dutch, I speak Spanish, and I speak English. You're going to say, I speak German, I speak English, and I speak Dutch, and Russian. We go, oh, okay, well, obviously English is the one we have in common, that's what we'll speak. That's called a protocol negotiation. It's a very common networking concept. It's very easy to understand if you imagine 2 people talking different languages. This is the beginning of that network handshake. If the other server spoke 1.1 but also spoke 2.0, which doesn't exist yet, it would know to stay in 1.1. If the other server spoke only 1.0, it would say, I don't know your version, I'm going to do my best, but don't count on it. Okay? And that's what that version is there for. It's a version negotiation, a protocol negotiation. Okay? And then, I won't go through it, but I put all the little things here. You can look here, HTTP response fields. There's lots of these. All these things come back from the server. It's a response from the server to the client saying, not only am I giving you what you wanted, but here's some other stuff about it you might want to know. For example, caching. Who can say what a cache is in the context of the network of HTTP? Yeah.
I'm trying. So the browser stores some of these answers.
Yeah.
And if the user requests something where the browser thinks, okay, the answer will be the same as
Right.
something which I already stored,
Right.
it does not do the request to the server,
Right.
and just loads it from the storage.
Exactly. That's a general concept of cache, fundamental computer science concept, which is a collection of values that generally are very hard to compute. You just remember the last answer, so when somebody asks the same question again, you can give the same answer. Now, caches exist in the network as well. I mean, when you're playing a movie on Netflix, there's not a little server sitting in Palo Alto running that movie. There's actually servers all over the world that are caching that movie, and that's where you're getting it from. So caching exists at the network level as well. That's called a content delivery network, very common thing. So there's a bunch of arguments that go back here that say to the cacher, you know, how long are you allowed to keep it? Did it come out of a cache? There's a bunch of interest. There's a sort of a unique handle called an e-tag. There's all kinds of things that the server puts into the response that might be useful to the caller. Okay, but the most important thing it gives is the actual content. Content type, text HTML. Content length, 1270 bytes. Okay, so that's HTTP. Now, as I said, there's HTTP methods, and think of that as a required argument that's always there. Whenever I talk to the server, whenever I make that call and ask something in HTTP, I have to say what method I want. And they did that to create some kind of a uniformity of the conceptual structure of HTTP to allow people to build systems that make sense and also operate nicely under certain conditions. And the ones that we care most about are get, put, post, and delete. Okay, and I'm going to just say get means get me the value. Oh, yeah. Get means get me the value of the resource at this path. That's the way to think of it in sort of pure conceptual form. So the path may be /A/B/C, and that designates a resource. And when I say get, I say give me the value of that resource. Now that's an abstract way of saying it. What I'm really saying is give me whatever content you have that corresponds to this address. Put means here's a value. I want you to store it. The client wants to store this value over there at this address. What would use a put? When would a put come into play? Get is, pardon? Uploads, yes, but even a simpler case, yes.
Don't a lot of forms use it?
Yeah, exactly, a form. When you're filling out a form, you hit OK, you're doing a post. You may be doing a put. Put and post are very similar. I won't get into the difference right now because it's subtle. But you may be doing a put or a post. So it's, again, interestingly enough, okay, when I hit that button and I submit a comment in my blog post, I'm still doing a call to the server. I'm calling to the server, but what I'm saying is, here's a URL, here's content, and I want you to do a put. The server's job in that scenario is to take that content and attempt to store it at that address. Now remember that HTTP is always a subroutine from the client calling you and you're going to give an answer back. So what does the server send back? What is their response? Well, it's not necessarily another HTML page, or it might be. Go ahead.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of sense. It gives some response if the storage was successful or not.
Right.
And maybe some new HTML which shows it nicely, edits, blah blah blah.
Yeah, exactly.
Do an undo option or whatever.
Exactly. So, what do you think? Does it all make sense? Okay, let's dig into a little more. It's really important to have this in your head. All right. Okay, so that's HTTP for Rails. So now resources in Rails. I think instead of talking about this, I'm going to show you, and then I'll come back. Now, everybody take your computers out and follow along with me, please, or at least try. See how far you get before you get into trouble. I'm going to do this. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to start to another page. If you want, by the way, Amin will wander around if you get stuck. Put your hand up if you need help. I'm probably going to go too fast, but there's a lot to get through. And this is the script, quote unquote, is right here, most of it anyway. So I'm going to go Rails, new, res demo. And same thing as before.
What is it? Rails new
Res demo.
red. There's no red.
RES, doesn't matter, RESDEMO. And now you CD into res demo. That's just the name of the application. And now we're going to do Rails generate. I'm going to change it from that scaffold. Post, title, colon, string, body, colon, text. I'm going to make a little blogging platform here as we watch. So this is creating one new model called post. And I'm going to now say Rails generate scaffold, comment, body, text, and of course post ID integer. Why do I need that? Anybody? Evan, why do we need that? Yes,
Because the post has a one-to-many content.
exactly. So that's going to be the association between the two, right? I'm going to now do rake db migrate because until I do that, the database is not created. And we're going to take a look at what we have so far. By the end of the class, I will have mastered this. So, okay. I'm trying to keep it in view here. So let's look at a couple of things that are interesting. Okay, first I'm going to look at DB migrations. I'm going to have one migration for each. Did I see a hand? No. Okay. One migration for each model that I created. Okay. And the migrations are what one of the things that was the result of doing the Rails generate scaffold comments. One of the things that did this, and this is instructions to the database as to what the fields are you want. And similarly here. And when I did a rake db migrate, it went ahead and created the actual database. And that we can find in the right here. Of course, it's binary because it's a SQLite database. We won't bother looking at it. But here's what else it created. It created a bunch of other things. We're going to look inside the config directory, and we're going to look at the routes.rb. Now, routes.rb has got a lot of comments in it, which is interesting when you're trying to remember how to do something, but it makes it look worse than it is, because in reality, all that is in here right now is this. Okay? So basically, interesting that it's using the word resource. Now, when in Rails, the word resource means almost the same thing as the word model. Okay? Except that it is further refined to obey the standard HTTP verbs of get, put, post, delete, and so on. And I'll show you that. So basically, this is saying, this. Let me go a little further, and I'll come back. Now, here's another really cool thing to do. Rake routes. Here's one command. This is really important. I'm going to make it bigger. Oh, no, it fits. Good. Let's study this. So, this information is a dump of what the router thinks you want. In other words, this information is a dump of the result of those two lines in the routes.rb file. And the two lines were, if you remember, those two lines. These two lines, which say there's one resource called comments, and when I have a resource, it means that I can do comment/new, comment/1, comment/1 delete. I can do all these very useful paths automatically. Let's look at it. And that's why it's a resource, because it has that default behavior. So, here's how you read this. If the HTTP verb is get, and the URI pattern is /comments, so in other words, the browser is saying website/comments, and the HTTP call is a get, it's going to call the method in controller comments called index. Who does not understand what I just said? And if no hands go up, I'm going to call on you. Thank you. One, only remaining honest man. Okay. When the browser asks the server, when you type into the browser, /comments, that turns into an HTTP GET, because that's how browsers work, of the path /comments. Which then, what happens with that is the question. You look at this table, this is the routing table, and it says when the verb is get, when the path is /comments, call the controller comment and the action or the method in it called index. If the line is /get, you were asking, oh, it's gone. Oh, no, there you go, George. /comments /1 / by itself, so it's /comments /1, which obviously you can very easily parse as being different. Then it said, well, this is the one that works. Get /comments /variable. That's just this one. So it's going to call controller comments action, i.e. method show. Okay? Who does not understand that perfectly? Okay. Who does not understand it mostly? Okay. All right. Good. William, explain what is let me find one. What does this do? What does this mean? What does this line mean?
So that's calling on the comments
Yeah.
with the get.
Yeah.
And with the ID as a parameter, so it's going to get the method show comments.
Exactly. And what is this word comments? What is that?
It's a class, isn't it?
There's the class with the method show. And it's going to
What's the class called?
comment
Comment control.
comment control.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I was tripping up again. You're right. So the trick is, okay, let's go look for it. Okay, let's go look for it. And to the extent you're able to follow along, which you may not be because you're listening at the same time, we go to app, we go to controllers, we go to comments controllers, and there's index. Yes.
My question's not partially related to this. So when you're talking about models, you said not to put business logic in there.
Yes.
Now with controllers, I see that there's an update method.
Yeah.
But when I was talking to Nick yesterday, he was talking to us about using like on update things in the models. How do you know what goes in a model versus what goes in a controller?
Okay. Well, there's a principle, general Rails principle, which I think applies to any platform, which is to put as little logic in the controller as you can.
In the
talk
model.
about in the controller.
Oh, in the controller.
Like literally control, because controllers can very quickly become big. Okay. So then the question is, where do you put it? And so there's a series, as I think that the work you did for homework for today reflected. There's a series of triggers, what they call triggers, that say if this happens, do this also. And one of the kinds of triggers is if I create a comment and the post doesn't exist, then automatically create a post, something like that. I would, for the moment, know that they exist, but because here's why. It's not totally clear if I type a URL, post/41/comment/5, that it's correct to go create a post, right? Maybe the correct thing is to give an error.
Yeah.
So I prefer have you guys go the error path, like have it give an error, and then overtly realize, okay, this is a specific case. If I do this, that I do want to create it. So there are definitely cases where it's like an on create or an on delete, but I think you can live a pretty happy life for a while without using those. Okay. Now, this particular example, for example, create, where it actually does. No, that's not even the one I want. I want this one. To create, show new. Okay. Now here, in the new method, it's doing a comment new, or let's call this post new. you do have to create something new, and so that does go in the controller. But the idea is, I mean, a few lines is okay. When they say thin controllers, they mean like don't make any action in the controller more than 20 lines. Because if it's more than 20 lines, almost always there's a support class that you create that'll clean up the code. Did you have a question? I thought I saw your hand. Yes.
Where do you put the support class
I saw that you guys all saw that it could go in lib. I and many people at the beginning believed that the paths, that the structure of the directories is sort of sacrosanct. It's not really. So you can put it in lib, put it in here. You can put it in the models directory. Just have a new model. That's not a active record model. Okay, this is an active record model. How can I tell this is an active record model? Yeah, it's inherits from active record. I can put a file in the same directory called, trades algorithm.rb, which is a model. It's going to be a class, but it's not an active record model. But I would say it still belongs in the same directory.
But I mean, you have some more complex logic.
Yeah.
If you want to pull out of the controller.
Yeah.
Then it's, in my understanding, not a model at all. It would be something like service, something like that.
Yeah, I mean those words are.
But I mean, a model is a data container. It has
A model is a data container, but it's not necessarily a persistent data container.
Yeah, true. But I mean, like logic means that you have functional calls. Which
Yeah, I mean, so you can put it in lib then. You wouldn't put it in controller. You wouldn't put it in views.
You would not,
You-
because I would put it in as whatever some folder of controller.
And I wouldn't kill you if you did that. I mean, that's a legitimate thing. Yes. He wakes.
Yeah, there's something called service objects in Rails.
Okay.
You can put your logics in order to, for drive principle.
Yeah.
You can put your logic in a service object and call it in Rails.
Where do you put the service stuff?
You can make a directory, I think, in your app called service.
Yeah, you can do it right here.
Yeah.
Same level of models.
It's a pattern, standard pattern that they sometimes use in Rails projects.
Yeah, that would be perfectly legitimate. Yeah.
Look in the library folder.
It could go in the library. These things don't have a correct answer. I believe that the yes.
I think library is a better choice because you can access the material in the library without the required statement.
That's true.
Yeah. If you put that stuff in the library, so you can use it directly.
But if you put them in the apps directory, the same is true, correct?
I'm not sure.
In
Check
your
the
app
app
config, you can set the include path in your app.
So what do you get for free? For example?
For free is in the
For free.
Not in the apps. Not a subdirectory of apps.
The chapter described it for the web. I don't know about that.
So I mean, I think again, these things don't have a correct answer, but that would be a good argument. It's like, where do you put it to get the free loading of objects? Now, so you also on this free, yes.
Also, my thought was just, like, as far as I understood the lib folder, it's meant for things that are used by different kinds of classes. So
Mhm.
in chapter it says if you have something which is used by views and controllers, for
Mhm.
example, then you put it in lib.
Mhm.
But in order to get things nicely separated in
Yeah.
the MVC, I would like the controller helper or whatever, or controller service
Yeah.
to be as close as possible to the controller and accessible only by the controller, not by anyone else. Or at least like accessed.
Yeah.
Accessible and accessed.
That would be perfectly cool. That's perfectly legitimate. I think you guys can just have a couple of beers and spend 4 hours arguing about this because there's really no right answer. It's a design choice. There's a million design choices you make, and to the extent that you don't exactly violate the concepts that are built into Rails, I think you can make the argument. Now, what I usually do is I go look at examples, see what do people tend to put in libs. Like Amin's point about services or service subdirectory in our apps is one convention I've seen. I've seen all kinds of big categories of classes under apps, like it could be like import-export, or it could be a math or whatever. So you can put, if there's a category of classes that are not models, they're not controllers, they're not views, it's perfectly fine to make a new subdirectory under app.
And but if put it into controller helpers, these automatically generated things.
The helpers are view helpers. So
You have.
yeah, they're conceptually view helpers. Yes, I mean,
Yeah,
sorry.
one thing I wanted to say about the difference between the library that you put the logic on a service object or whatever is that library is usually you put your components as classes. But what George means is something like you have a piece of code that you use several components with instantiates some classes, right?
Yeah.
And you call some code, some methods. That would be better put into other methods like service object instead of library.
Did you pay for it yourself? All right. Okay. Let's move on. This is like how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Now seriously, because it's deep. Huh? You never heard that expression? How many angels can dance on the head of a pin?
No, one time.
It's a thing, of course.
That's not a thing.
It's totally a thing. It's a stand-in. What?
Did you just rake it into your database?
Yes, I did.
Thing?
What?
That's been around forever.
Pardon?
That's not
How many angels can dance on the head of a pin?
Yeah, that's
Angels are dancing in heaven.
It's a little arcane.
I'm an arcane kind of guy. I like these old references. It's basically questions that have no answer. You can argue about them forever, and you'll never be done. People in the Middle Ages would sit around drinking mead and talking about this. Okay,
We have meat.
we have mead, but you'll get it on the last day of class. Okay, stop.
I'll become a straight A student if that was the promise at the end.
I'm bringing in some mead tomorrow. I want to see that. Okay, so now let's run the server and test all these theories out. Okay, so by the way, so rake routes is your friend. Very, very useful. Okay, when things are not doing what you expect them to do, go to rake routes and look at what's going on. I didn't touch on this. These are methods that are automatically created for you when you're using a resource. When you say resource : posts, you get these methods. And this method is a prefix to a method. So it's really comments underscore path or comments underscore link. But let's say comments underscore path, new comment underscore path, edit comment underscore path. You will see them used throughout your views instead of typing in the URL. Instead of typing in quote slash comment slash new, you type in comment new comment path. Yes.
Do I get it right from this list that you don't have to configure anything in order to call just like in this example before search if you add to an index method to the search controller? Because there it says the first line comment without any other slashes is
Yeah.
called if you add an index.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
In fact, let's do it. Yes. Well,
So when you do resource as opposed to scaffold, these methods are created, but your controllers are empty. So do they work?
okay. Now, this is a yes, they do because I didn't say call resource instead of scaffold. If you play the tape, I said call resource instead of model.
Yes.
Create, Rails generate model, Rails generate resource. Those are the two poles. It turns out that scaffold is kind of its own thing. It's like this magic thing that generates a bunch of code, and by default, it is creating scaffold resources. So in fact, this example we're looking at, I did Rails generate scaffold.
But so in your code, the controllers are filled out.
They're filled out.
They have code.
We'll look at they're totally
Does
filled
it
out.
make a difference that when you do a resource, it does not fill out the controllers?
Just saves you typing. That's it. It's just code. In other words,
So
if you get clever enough that you don't have to have, I still need a reminder. It's very handy to have that reminder. It's just code. It's canned code.
but it has to be written. Is the point.
It has to be written.
Okay.
Yes, it has to be
If
written.
you
Yes.
don't have an index method and call the controller name without any, then it gives an error. I mean, this is what I experienced.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you write the index, then it doesn't.
Yeah, because it's the router literally saying, I can see how to parse this. I see slash post slash nothing more. Therefore, I need the post controller and I need an index action there. Can I find it? Great. At the end of the index action, it says, okay, now I need to find a view subdirectory with a file in there called index.html.erb. Do I find it? No? Error. It's all defaults, okay? So, okay. So now let's run this server. Everybody good? Okay. It's going to say no because I have another server running. Okay, quick, by the way, when you see this, this is the important line. Address already in use, okay? I have another server running, and you can't have two people, they're both listening for door knocks on door number 80. Only one guy can be listening. So I got to go kill that guy. Here he is. Kill him. No. Kill. Okay, and now it's running. All right, so now I can go to a browser. And I can type in here fun things like, and make this a little bigger. http://0.0.0.03000. Okay, now somebody said, why are the static files in a separate directory from the dynamic files? Because the static files are usually called something.html, and they were written in a text editor, and they are what they are, and they never change. The ones that are not static are the ones that are called .html.elb, and the treatment and the processing is totally different. And that's why they're sitting under the whole app directory. The ones that are static often have nothing to do with the Rails app; they're just static. But in a real world situation, within the Rails directory structure, there'll be no static files. They'll all be generated somehow or other, even the home page. Okay, but I'm going to say /posts/1/comments/1. Okay. Look at that error. You're going to see that error a lot, and you're going to be mystified. Why is it saying this? But luckily, because I have this gem, which you get automatically called nice errors or something like that, it interprets them. We can look here to see that /posts/1/comments does not exist on this list. This thing does not know that I can nest things this way. It just thinks that all it knows, it doesn't think, it knows. All it knows how to do is this, post/1. It knows how to do that, okay? But of course there are no posts, so it's going to fail. I'm going to show you how, let's go through this actually. So basically, I want to think about how to explain this. So basically, the router took this URL that I typed, /post/1, and it said, I'm looking for a controller. Let's go back and look at this thing. Where's my? Where is it? Yeah. Okay, so I am looking for a controller called post with an index of 1. So if we look here, we see that post is here. ID says this is an argument. Okay, so it's going to go look for, it's a get, right? Because I just typed it into the browser. It's going to look for posts. Here it is, this one. Post/1, a get is going to post show. Okay, we're going to go to post show. We're going to have some fun with it. We're going to go to controller posts, and we're going to look at show. And we're looking here, and it says it doesn't do anything. Okay, that's fine. The next thing I have to do in show is it goes down to what? When that show action is completed, Burke, where does it go next? Steve? Huh? No? And then? What, after the show action is executed, because it does nothing, what happens next?
Go to the view.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go look at the view. Posts, show, and the first thing it does is it tries to display a post. But that add post variable is not even set up. Let's go back.
So since in the controller that is an empty method,
Yeah,
does it actually have to be there?
No, I'm looking at the wrong thing. It's interesting that I'm actually surprised because the principle. I'm not saying anything correct, but look at that. It's calling set post. Now, why is it calling set post? Okay, what line is it in? It's in res demo post controller show. Okay. Go here, post controller show. I'm a little baffled here. It would take me a few minutes to figure out what's going wrong here. Am I in res demo? Yes.
But you're supposed to return a post, right? With that ID one.
Okay. Here's what's going on. Okay. They create some clever code. Somebody asked about triggers before. Look at the fine print. Before action. That says do this before any action. Okay? And the first one is set post, which happens to be a private method down here. And it says, using the ID, ask the database, here it is, to locate a record in the post model, which is position number 1. And it's the database is saying, no, I don't have that. I have no records yet. If I do something fun here, which is comment this out, and here I'm going to put under show, I'm going to say put s, quote, found params. Okay, and now, so what I've done is I've added a little bit of code, and where does put s comes out? Where the output is? It's going to come out in the server log. It's just going to come out in all that noise that we see in the server. So let's go look.
But you still gonna get an error though in the view.
What's SL?
Yeah.
That's the thing that's recording the screen. Pardon me, sorry, William?
You still gonna get an error in the view because the view is expected in post.
No, it's like the error was coming before.
Yeah, but
Okay, but-
it's still gonna
The view is still going to, I know, I'm going to get an error. Yes, I am going to get an error, but I want to show you I want to refresh this. Okay, now the error is different. The error is coming out of the view, like you guys said, because nothing has set up at post, because I just removed the,
You're missing an equal sign.
no, I'm
You
not.
are.
Where?
At post.title where you had that percent equals, you need it on both sides.
No, I don't. You're wrong.
No.
You're wrong.
Really? I've got bugs that say
It's just that there's nothing set on at post.
Okay, so the set post,
Equals on the side.
so this method is no longer getting called, so at post is no longer getting set up, so the view fails. But what I really want to look at is, or what I also want to look at, is this. Scroll back. Oh no, where's my server? Scroll back to this. These are the parameters. This is my star output here, put S in, right? And I indicated the parameters that came into this call. This action call called show. And it's a hash, just a good old hash, with 4 keys. The first key is the name of the action. The second key is the name of the controller, and the third key is the ID, that number 1 in the call. Okay, so for example, if I say this, Brandeis, okay, and I go look over here, and I scroll down even further, don't call me a liar, here it is.
There it is.
Okay, so the parser that said in the route, so the route, go back to the route. No, actually in the rake route, the thing that dumps out the route. Here, it had get, and then it had post slash colon ID. That's a variable. It gets associated with the key ID, which is why it shows up as ID in the output from the put s. Okay? So the point is, yes. Oh shoot. Nobody else, you can go. Everybody else wants to listen. The point is, I'll continue next time. The point is here that the name of the variable ID here is visible already in the routing table. I'll leave it to you guys to go figure out how, maybe I'll even make it an official homework, how I can get this to work. 0.0 /post/1/comment/2. How can I get that to work? And I'll give you a clue. It's a one-line change. 2 lines. You have to add 3 characters and 2 character terms. And that'll make the change. Okay? So I'll leave it at that. And I'll pick up where we left off on Tuesday. So my deal with George is that I have until Sunday night to finalize the homework for next week. So I may tweak it between now and then. But Tuesday is going to be about authentication. We're going to finish this stuff. We're going to go into authentication. And then Friday, we're going to talk about an overall, like a recipe, like a cooking recipe for your project. You've got to do this first, then that, and then that, and that, and that. And then Thursday, the lab is going to be all project time. You're going to have 2 hours of undivided time to work with your teams. That's the plan for next week.
We're doing the engagement.
At 3.
There's only one of us, right?
Pardon me?
There's only one of us.